There have been 8 different generations of Pokemon with dozens of different type experts across the 8 or 9 regions that we visited. But among these leaders, who remains to be supreme among their specialized domain? When there are 18 different types and various different leaders of each type, obviously the crown can't fall upon all their heads. It must only fall upon the 18 best and nobody else. Which is why in today's video, I'm going to be going over all the best type specialists across all of Pokemon. This will not be restricted to gym leaders and will factor in Elite Four members, champions, and other trainers who would be considered to be type specialists, at least on Bulbapedia. While I don't have time to go over each individual trainer, just know each trainer has been looked at in accordance to the total team synergy. For example, just because you have a team of 6 and no one else does, doesn't mean that you automatically win that type group. There might be a leader with a team of 5 or even 4 who has a better team composition than you do with just a limited number of Pokemon, which in that case, they will win in that type specialty. Overall stats, moves, weaknesses, resistances have all been taken into consideration, and all teams that the leaders have used will be considered here. Meaning, yes, prepare to see everyone's Black 2 and White 2 teams, but only for the 9 physically oriented typings, cause y'all don't like seeing videos that are longer than 12 minutes, so we'll have to do a part 2 to this next week or so. And while you're here, let me know, do you prefer long videos or videos like this cut up into parts? You're gonna determine the fate of this channel, so choose wisely. Normal. Surprisingly, the normal type has much stronger leaders than I expected them to have. The first 3 in particular have caused a lot of difficulty for trainers in the main story of the game, and with their Pokemon World Tournament teams, both Norman and Whitney are huge threats. But between the two, I think Norman is the one who has it in the bag. He may not have Scrappy like Whitney does, but he does have a ton of Pokemon who can hit hard. He's got priority on both Ambipom and Staraptor, as well as fighting coverage on both of them, and one Pokemon neutral to fighting, which Whitney lacks. Whitney does have a good tank in the form of Blissey and Lopunny who's faster than Staraptor, but I think overall Norman has the better damage output and tankiness on his team, and he has X-Cloud to hit on the special side for which Whitney just has Blissey. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl made the Sinnoh leaders in their rematches an absolute threat, and there's no question to that with Maylene. What most fighting type leaders struggle with is in diversity, like Marshall and Chuck, but both Maylene and Brawly have a very strong set of secondary typings to their teams. However, Maylene has 5 Pokemon with dual typings, whereas Brawly has 3, and her Lucario gives her an edge, giving her a flying resist, which Brawly fails to have. Brawly does have Scrafty, which is an immunity to Psychic, which is always useful for a mono fighting team. But you can say Maylene sorta balances out as she has 2 Pokemon neutral to Psychic, and overall, Maylene's team has moves, abilities, items, and speed that work better for her, making her the best here. Flying! Surprisingly the type with the fewest leaders. Flying makes it easy for us in terms of numbers, but difficult in terms of teams, because each of the leaders have such diverse teams, as they should since Flying is a type that has been paired with every other type. But I think overall, Winona's got it in the bag, mainly due to her Altaria and Skarmory. Both of them check for all of Flying's weaknesses respectively, and the remainder of her team members have other types that work well in her favor, her Gyarados and Honchkrow specifically. However, I'd say while it does give her an additional quad ice weakness, her Emerald rematch team with Dragonite is also quite a threat. The other leaders may have something for either ice or electric type Pokemon, but none of them have a resist for rock the way Winona does with Skarmory. Except Kahili, but then she has her whole team weak to electric. Sorry Faulkner, Winona took the one Pokemon that really should have been your ace. Poison! For Poison, there's no question about it, Roxy is without a doubt the strongest Poison type expert that we've gotten so far. Poison's only weaknesses are Ground and Psychic, and to check that, she has a Pokemon that's immune to both of them with Drapion and Crobat, and then Amoonguss as a Ground resist. Yes, 5 out of her 6 team members still get destroyed by Psychic type Pokemon, but she still has a Choice Scarf Scolipede with Megahorn, which will most likely get the job done in taking care of any Psychic types. I will admit, Plumeria did indeed come close to winning, as her team is quite strong as well. But Scolipede is faster than Gengar, and since Gengar is Curse Body now, she doesn't have that additional ground resist or immunity the same way Roxy does, which is why Roxy takes the crown here. Ground. The land and the sky both are the fewest leaders coming in at 4, and oddly enough, just like the flying type, the ground type leaders are all pretty stacked. Hapu does unfortunately get the short end of the stick for not having much type diversity in her team, making it difficult for her to combat ground's 3 weaknesses of ice, grass, and water, However, Bertha and Clay both have a team composition that checks all three of them in one way or another. But I think ultimately, Clay wins for having the stronger team, and also two Pokemon that are neutral to Olive Ground's weaknesses and the better overall team composition. Excadrill and Flygon really carry here with the Steel and Dragon types. Yeah, Giovanni does have the most intimidating team, and the guy is a freaking Garchomp for crying out loud. But an Ice Beam destroys his entire team, so there's that. Rock. Though I would love to give the old Brocco the automatic win for just being Brock here, I don't think he makes the cut. Each of Brock's teams are heavily weighed down by the fact that he has multiple Rock and Ground type Pokemon, making for way too many Quad Grass and Water weaknesses on one team. Roxanne and Rourke, however, both have Pokemon to take care of this, as well as Rock's other weaknesses of Fighting, Ground, and Steel. And I will admit, while I do think Roxanne has the better team in terms of Pokemon, Rourke definitely has the advantage as his team not only has a Pseudo, but his Tyranitar can set up the Sandstorm as well as Stealth Rocks. And even if Tyranitar goes down, Aerodactyl is there in the back to set up rocks as well. This on top of one Pokemon or another to check for each of Rock's weaknesses, as well as a 50% special defense buff to all Rock type Pokemon in the Sandstorm, really makes Rourke's team a tier above everyone else's. Bug. The Bug type was always looked down upon until recent generations, and people also normally look down upon trainers outside the league as type specialists as well, which is why I'm very proud to say that Guzma is indeed the strongest Bug type trainer that we have thus far. I'd say the closest to Guzma would be Bugsy, as Bugsy does have two Bug and Rock types, which checks for Bug's weaknesses of Fire and Fighting, and Scizor and Heracross are there for Bug's remaining Rock weaknesses. However, Bugsy's team overall remains very easy to take down. Sure, Shuckle is one of the most annoying and defensive Pokemon in the game, but Water is also one of the most common typings in the game, and that will take out it as well as Armaldo. Moveset wise, Bugsy also opts for setup rather than coverage, which doesn't work well in my opinion, because again, his team seems very easy to take down. Guzma on the other hand, opts for only and only coverage, which I think is a smarter play when you work with the Bug type. In this sense, all 5 of his Pokemon are rocking great moves, and he has a check to every one of Bug's weaknesses one way or another, and multiple different checks at that. His Pokemon's abilities also seem better, and if you're worried about no items, you can just take them from his Pokemon in the battle tree, and see what he would use from there. And while he may have been bullied before, just like the Bug type, he sure is standing strong now. Ghost. Here's the thing with the Ghost type. They're only weak to Dark in themselves, but the only types that resist Dark and Ghost are Dark, Fairy, and Fighting, and of course Normal is immune to Ghost, so our type experts should probably have a few different Pokemon of these type combinations on their team. Except none of them do. Phoebe and Morty both carry Sableye around with them, and Fantina carries Spiritomb, so I think we have to pick between one of these three. You'd think that Acerola would use Mimikyu, but no, she doesn't, so hey, here we are. Between the three, I'd say Phoebe is definitely not making it due to her lack of status conditions that her team utilizes, which is something that the Ghost type thrives on. But between Morty and Fantina, I think I'm going to have to give it to Fantina. If you ask me, Morty's best team is a team without a Sableye and Chandelure instead. And I also think that Fantina's Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl team without her Spiritomb is her best team as well, as it utilizes Hex and all sorts of different statuses and annoying moves to mess with her opponent. Going back to her Spiritomb team, I'd say that's arguably better than Morty's Sableye team too, so ultimately I think Fantina is the better user of the Ghost types and their pesky statuses and annoyance, giving her the win here. Steel. You'd expect Steven Stone to annihilate this section of the list, but unfortunately, he's as fake as Steel type trainers can get, cause he takes the stone in his name quite literally when it comes to his team. Jasmine, Molayne, and Byron are the star contenders this time around, and honestly, I was leaning between either Jasmine or Molayne since they both have Metagross, and Jasmine's team looks absolutely stacked with Skarmory and Lucario, and since Molayne has Klefki, who has one of the best dual type combos in the game. But once again, I think I'm going to have to give to Byron's Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl team. I think in terms of power, Jasmine and Molayne definitely got it better, but Byron is the only one between the three who has any form of checks towards the fire type. With Molayne and Jasmine, if you run in there with a fire type Pokemon, you're pretty much sure to win. At least Byron has Pokemon neutral to fire, and also Pokemon that can hit back when they need to. Downside is Skarmory is the only Pokemon that checks for both fighting and ground for him, so it's really debatable here. I'm still going to opt with Byron because his Black 2 and White 2 team is also pretty good. The only downside being that Bastiodon with the air balloon is his only ground immunity there, but hey, that's still better than not having any check to fire types at all. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, part 2 will be coming up where we go over the special typings and cover the remainder of the list. Take care of yourselves, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you over on the next video, alright? Later.